Hello! We have 3 stories today, and they're all on HOAs or neighbors from hell themes. Who says you can't have too much of a good thing? I mean, there's coffee, pies, surveillance cameras. Wait, what? Our first story will have you trying to decide between cursing the feeling of being surveilled in your own home or cheering for the destruction of an overzealous HOA. My first thought, Cece, first blood. I get a camo jacket and move to the woods where I fight a campaign of destruction against a corrupt local HOA. Oh, funnel cakes. My bandana is in the wash. Maybe next week. Story 1. This happened several years ago and is a multi-year long story. I'll keep it as succinct as possible. We installed cameras in front of our home that were looking at our vehicles. Part of the camera angles did overlook parts of 2 neighbors' properties, 1 backyard and 1 side yard. The cameras were battery operated and had a function where you could gray out areas that you didn't want to film. When motion occurred in the grayed out areas, the cameras would not be activated to film. The neighbors' entire properties and several bushes on our property were grayed out. We did this when installing them. One of the neighbors was a friend and had no issues with this whatsoever. We showed her the camera angle and she said she didn't care whether or not we grayed out that area. We still left it grayed out over battery life concerns. The other neighbor's name was Karen. Not really, but we all know why I chose that name. Karen was on the HOA board and, as you can imagine, we didn't get along with Karen or the HOA board. We told Karen about the camera and showed her the grayed out areas at the same time that we told our friendly neighbor about it. It was simply an FYI conversation. We're not on friendly terms. Not an asking permission conversation. She told us to take the cameras down immediately or we would regret it. About a week after we hung the camera up, we got a notice from our HOA that we were violating the bylaws. The bylaw in question? A nuisance to your neighbor's bylaw. There wasn't a specific bylaw preventing placement of cameras, so this is all they could find to try punish us. We responded with a letter detailing how we were not violating any bylaws or laws in general and asked them to cease and desist. We all know how these stories go, though. They did not cease and they did not desist. Their first response? The HOA has the right to enforce these bylaws. Try to stop us if you think you can. These types of responses were, unfortunately, quite common from this board. We entered this battle with one goal in mind, to cost them as much money and time as possible. The HOA hired a lawyer specifically to fight us. To my knowledge, this has not happened to any other residents. In the following 4 months, we ended up costing the HOA over $4,000 in lawyers' fees fighting this battle. For reference, the entire HOA income was approximately $25,000 per year. When it came time for our official HOA hearing over the matter, we had successfully postponed it, thanks to an attorney friend, 3 separate times. There were over 100 back and forth emails with the HOA attorney and ourselves. Each one of those emails was a 15-minute expense for the HOA. And I was happy to follow up a follow-up question with another follow-up question if it meant the HOA attorney was going to keep billing them. Did I say follow-up enough times? We didn't actually want to take this battle to court, so we ended up removing the cameras the day of the hearing. To prevent being fined, even if the fine wouldn't hold up in court, the HOA decided in the hearing that we were guilty, surprise, surprise, of violating the bylaw. They couldn't fine us, as the bylaws don't allow a fine until after a hearing has been held, and the cameras were already removed. In the end, the punishment was a sternly written piece of paper on the attorney's letterhead, delivered via certified mail. It stated that we were, quote, not allowed to place a camera on our home that had the potential to invade a neighbor's privacy, end quote. Keep in mind, the letter specifically stated the camera could not be placed on our home. We left the cameras off of the home for about 4 months, until the annual HOA meeting. You should have seen the look on the HOA board's faces when I asked them to explain the $4,000 line item for attorney's fees that simply stated, title searches, attorney fees. The board actually tried to hide the fact that they spent $4,000 trying to fight us over a couple of cameras by putting the fees in as title searches. Needless to say, that meeting did not go well for them. About half of them lost their positions on the board. The other half, including Karen, unfortunately, remained on the board. About a week after the annual meeting, we installed new cameras, facing the same direction as the prior cameras. Only this time, we installed a post in the ground and mounted the cameras to that post. The admonishment we received after the hearing specifically stated that we were not allowed to install cameras on our home and said nothing about putting them on a post. They did send a letter to try to tell us to remove the cameras, but a sternly worded response indicating that we were prepared to fight them actually worked this time around. I guess they didn't want to spend another $4,000 fighting us. We didn't receive any follow-up responses, and the cameras on the post are still installed to this day, over 2 years and running strong. In the comments, Open Attention said, "Wonder what it would have cost them if you had also charged Karen with being a nuisance. She certainly sounds like one." Wasabi Cannon added, "That's the part that makes no sense. Nuisance to your neighbors? Could they not throw that right back into the Karen's face? She was being a nuisance to them first." Nat replied, "HOAs aren't intended to be fair and just. They're intended to be wielded as a legal cudgel the board members can use against homeowners they consider undesirable." Long live the cameras. I wonder what this Karen had to hide. Perhaps some shady dealings, some questionable comings and goings. I mean, why else would she care so much if her actual house was grayed out? Oh right, that's a sane, logical thought, and Karens are feral. On to our second story. It's about a very handsome/beautiful YouTube viewer who always clicks like and leaves a comment down below. This doesn't look like the right script. Someone must have switched them. So sneaky. Oh, here it is. It's actually all about trash. Cans, bins, and buckets, oh my! You take them out and you take them in. And it's just never good enough or quick enough for someone, and you have to fight trash with trash. Story 2. We live in an HOA, and if you don't, lucky you. We have never had any real problems. They don't do much other than make sure the park and gardens look good. Anyhow, for whatever reason, they decided to add a new rule. It wasn't needed, but I guess they got bored and wanted something to do. Maybe someone kept leaving their trash cans out all week. Fine, just ask them not to. It's not that hard. The new rule states when trash cans can be put out. They can't be out before 6 a.m. on Wednesdays and must be put back before 6 p.m. the same day. This is obviously stupid and has a few problems. First of all, some people use a different company. The HOA provided one goes on Wednesday and it's cheap, so most people use it. But you don't have to. Some people have theirs go Monday or Tuesday. Also, a lot of people here work in the medical field and just aren't home during those times. So no one is there to put out or bring in cans. So a few of us got together on how to comply but be annoying about it. We decided to comply with their set times as best we can. Take it out at 6 when a lot of us go to work or go for a morning walk, and take it back in at 6 since most of us are home. Some of us help by taking others' bins to the street if they're at work. But when it is time to take out the trash, do it as loud as fracking possible. Bin has wheels? Drag it. Got it to the street? Make sure it's firmly placed on the street. Need to take out another bag? Slap it in there and let the lid slam shut. For those who have trash to go out on other days, comply with the times. But do so on your trash day. Then also put them out on Wednesday as required. If you can, leave trash in them and leave the lid open so it would bake in the sun all day. Yes, it did smell like hot trash. That's the point. After 3 weeks of this, an email was sent out. The rule was thrown out, and we were all simply asked to put out and take in our cans within a reasonable amount of time, preferably on trash day. Was it really that dang hard to ask nicely? Why not just address whoever was the problem? Know that because an HOA rule was changed, a lawyer was paid to look over it before the CC&R could be updated. That means this stupid rule cost every resident money. Anyhow, we are already planning on voting out one member of the board who we know is the problem come the summer election. In the comments, Song and Heart 17 said, "The strangest part of this whole story to me, as somebody who doesn't live in the US or an HOA, is that you have different days for garbage pickup. My city contracts with one company to manage collection for the whole city, covered by taxes." "I've got good news for you," replied, "because we hate taxes so much that we'd rather pay mandatory fees." You'd think that an HOA would know if they had industrious and intelligent members, but no, they don't care. They simply want to exercise power and dominance. I feel like if I was a power-hungry Karen in an HOA, I'd watch my step with people in the medical field. They strike me as the take-no-baloney kind of people. As an aside, definitely gotta be careful leaving your bins out. As we learned during the Bucket Lady, or is it pronounced Bouquet, series, one of the most popular sagas I've ever told. It's been a while, so make sure to indulge in a throwback and have another listen. Or check it out if you haven't, because she's making a comeback in our next video. On to our third story, which mixes entitlement with karma in a delicious melange of just desserts. And it never hurts to have a sprinkling of petty revenge. Not unlike the dusting of snow and ice from my home in the bitter frozen north beyond the wall, where the White Walkers stalk about at night, putting up people's wipers on their cars? Story 3. I'm a 59-year-old male, and I live in a major city in Ontario, Canada. I live in a small subdivision and have 5 neighbors total on my street. For the past few years during the winter when we're getting a lot of snow or bad storms, as I leave for my overnight shift at around 8 to 9 p.m., I'll put up my wife's windshield wipers on her car and do a quick walk around to my other 5 neighbors. I'll put their windshield wipers up on their cars, obviously not if they're outside or something, but if it looks like they're in for the night. Many of them forget to do this, as many of them have children and it typically slips their mind, and their wipers will be frozen to their car in the morning. It's just something nice I like to do to look out for my neighbors. They're all always grateful of this and thank me for it. Many of them started doing it too, and there will be nights where I'll forget to put mine and my wife's up, and in the morning, one of the neighbors has done it for us. Anyway, recently one of our neighbors moved and a new family moved in as of last week. It's a young couple and their 2 young children. The other night, I was leaving for my overnight shift at around 9 p.m. It was snowing really heavy, and we were supposed to be getting almost 30 centimeters of snow, and it was freezing out. So I put my wife's wipers up and do my usual quick walk around to the other neighbors. I was hesitant when I reached my new neighbor's house, as I've only introduced myself once, but did it anyway. As I was putting the second wiper up on their pickup truck, the husband came charging out of his front door yelling, "Hey, what the fork are you doing to my truck?" I tried to explain to him I was just putting his wipers up to help him. He continued to scream at me to "Get the flack off my property and don't touch my stuff again." The wife then came out and started yelling at me too. I apologized and started walking away. Some of my other neighbors heard the commotion and came outside to see what was happening. They tried explaining to him too that it's just something we do. Both of them weren't having it. Fast forward to this morning. I'm arriving home from my overnight shift. As I'm walking in, I see the wife of this couple struggling outside to break the ice off the windshield wipers of the truck. Guess she was trying to take her kids to school and the wipers were frozen solid on the car. She sees me and yells over, "Hey there, do you mind giving me a hand, please?" I look over to her and yell back, "Nope, sorry. Thought I was to never touch your stuff again, ma'am," and walk back inside. She yelled back at me, "Wow, jerkhole." Told my wife about this. She thinks I should have helped her because she was just trying to get her kids to school. I disagree, as I was just following what they told me. In the comments, Mars Volta said, "Well, these neighbors seem like they already have the entire neighborhood disliking them already. That didn't take long." Decent added, "Can't wait to hear the story about how they are peeved that they don't get invited to the neighborhood barbecue in the summer." Ethelred the Unsteady said, "Well, I was going to put your invite under the wipers like everyone else, but then I remembered." Mortal Companion said, "It's always funny when people like that get exactly what they want and yet still complain." Mr. Remy added, "Semi-related. You can lay on your stomach and people who walk all over you will still complain you're not lying flat enough." National Impress added, "There's gotta be a spicy way to say this in German." Someone else replied, "It will be just one big word." Oh, doodle. It sounds like these new neighbors don't know what it's like to be treated with kindness. They must have just moved out of a place with a crazy HOA Karen who is all up in their stuff. Hopefully they get over themselves and their past traumatic experience. They're breaking the kindness daisy chain in this magical neighborhood and it just won't do. It won't do, I'm telling you. And that's it for today. Until next time, shine bright, Starlight. If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.